When Nobel Peace Prize winner Barack Obama was sworn into office on January 20th, 2009, the national debt was $10.62 trillion. The United States currently has a national debt total of over $19.9 trillion, according to the U.S. National Debt Clock as of the making of this video. That's an astonishing 87% increase in less than an 8-year period. However, this past summer during the U.S. Republican primary race, Dr. Ben Carson made a good point in mentioning that the $19 trillion debt figure was actually quite misleading. Most people never take into account that there's something called the fiscal gap, which at this point sits well over $210 trillion. Given the current approximated population in the U.S. of 315 million tax slaves, that's $666.66 per person. This number includes all the unfunded liabilities owed by the government which are not put on the books, such as the expenses of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and departmental program funding, versus the expected revenues from taxes. The two numbers should be equal or roughly balanced, much like you balance your own checkbook. When they're not in alignment, it's referred to politely as a gap. The only reason the United States is able to sustain such a massive gap in debt is because the dollar is a world reserve currency and as such has the ability through the Federal Reserve to print infinite amounts of money. If you want more information on this petrodollar arrangement and the fascinating and incriminating history lesson they're not allowed to teach you in school, you'll want to see this video. In the past, we've seen just how destructive the renunciation of a nation's debt can be. For example, in the case of Brazil in 1982, when it announced that it was unable to make payments on its debt, the U.S. Treasury responded by extending a direct loan of $1.23 billion to keep those checks going to the banks while a more permanent solution was negotiated through the IMF. Of course, these restructurings never end up working, which is evident because 5 years later, Brazil once again was forced to default on its then even larger $121 billion debt, a massive amount for the time, which rendered it so impossibly broke that it couldn't even buy gasoline for its police cars, which is not a particularly bad thing in and of itself. Now, the result of a default or restructuring is always the same. The burden rests solely upon the shoulders of taxpayers. The same was true of Argentina in 1982 when they could no longer service their debt. As always, their creditors immediately began negotiations for rollovers, guarantees, and new IMF loans, which would eventually plunge them even further into debt. By 1988, after the extension of new loans in the years prior, Argentina once again fell behind and stopped making payments. Now, getting back to the US, Trump is sending more mixed signals than a quarterback with Tourette syndrome. On the one hand, Donald Trump has appeared to have expressed interest in returning to a precious metal standard through his meeting with former CEO of the Bank of BB&T, John Allison, who stated, quote, "The U.S. should go back to a banking system backed by a market standard such as gold," end quote. On the other hand, it's already been confirmed that ex-Goldman Sachs banker Steve Mnuchin is Trump's pick for Treasury Secretary. And this is incredibly ironic considering Donald's staunch criticism of Hillary's acceptance of money from that same bank for speaking engagements. This, along with many other potential appointments, make it seem as though Trump is just refilling the swamp, not draining it. So what's your opinion, guys? Is everything Trump's saying just noise? The biggest problem facing this nation is its debt. Does Trump have a real viable plan for debt reduction? Even a return to the gold standard, which would be the best case scenario, would cause the biggest worldwide depression in world history because it would necessitate a reneging on the current debt, which mostly underpins the entire world's financial system. In other words, something major must be broken if you want the debt to stop piling up. There's got to be a washing away of sorts. That said, Trump brings a whole array of unknowns with him, and there are sure to be plenty of shakeups which spells plenty of opportunities for speculators. In the meantime, what's your personal opinion about Trump's tweet that nobody should be allowed to burn the American flag? If they do, there must be consequences, perhaps loss of citizenship or a year in jail. What do you guys think? Should an individual be allowed to burn his own property if he wants to? Is the burning of the American flag protected under the First Amendment? Leave your thoughts in the comments section below.
Guys, thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up and share it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. If you want to see more videos like this, click that big red subscribe button down there, and as soon as I upload a video, you'll be one of the first to see it. If you want to support this channel, pick up one of these hard-hitting, conversation-starting shirts. You'll find the link in the description below, along with a plethora of other hard-hitting, high-impact designs. Remember, guys, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and indifference to this notion is the means by which the people will secure their own oppression. Let's stop securing our own oppression, and let's start today. I'll see you guys in the next video.